I stared at my phone screen in complete disbelief as Madison's Facebook post loaded with crystal clarity, finally blocking my toxic sister. Family is better without her drama. The words felt like a physical blow to my chest. 347 people had already seen it, including our parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and dozens of mutual friends from our hometown. Comments were pouring in with crying face emojis and supportive messages for Madison. My hands trembled as I realized she had just publicly painted me as the villain in our family story, humiliating me in front of everyone we knew. But Madison had no idea that I quietly owned the tech company that had just extended her dream job offer at Morrison Industries. One phone call would change everything forever. Growing up, I was always the responsible older sister while Madison basked in the golden child spotlight that never seemed to dim. Our parents consistently excused every questionable decision she made, from failing classes to wrecking cars, while demanding that I step in as the eternal peacekeeper. When Madison threw tantrums, I was expected to calm her down. When she needed money, I was supposed to understand why she deserved it more than I did. When she broke promises, everyone just shrugged and said that was Madison being Madison. I worked 3 jobs during college: waiting tables at a local diner, tutoring freshman students in mathematics, and cleaning office buildings on weekends, just to pay for my education and avoid student loan debt. Meanwhile, Madison received a full scholarship to art school, not because of academic excellence, but because our parents convinced the admissions committee that she was a misunderstood creative genius who just needed the right environment to flourish. The recent family tension had erupted 6 months ago when Madison asked me to loan her $8,000 for her wedding venue deposit. I had politely declined, reminding her about the 4 previous loans totaling over $12,000 that she had never repaid. Those loans had covered everything from car repairs she claimed were emergencies to credit card debt she promised was just temporary. Each time she swore she would pay me back within 3 months. Each time the money disappeared into her lifestyle while I stretched my own budget to accommodate the loss. When I refused the wedding loan, Madison's reaction was swift and devastating. She immediately called our parents, crying hysterically about how cruel and selfish I was being during the most important time of her life. She painted a picture of me as a bitter, jealous older sister who resented her happiness and wanted to sabotage her wedding day. Within hours, I was fielding angry phone calls from relatives who had been told that I was trying to ruin Madison's future because I could not stand seeing her succeed. The narrative Madison crafted was masterful in its manipulation. She told our parents that I had always been jealous of her artistic talents and popularity in school. She claimed I had made snide comments about her fiancé David being beneath our family standards because he worked as a mechanic instead of pursuing a college degree. She even suggested that my refusal to help financially was rooted in some twisted desire to see her relationship fail so I could feel superior about my own single status. None of these accusations were true, but Madison delivered them with such convincing emotion that our family rallied around her without question. Suddenly, I was the villain who needed to apologize for being unsupportive. Family dinners became tense affairs where everyone walked on eggshells around Madison while shooting disapproving glances in my direction. What hurt most was watching our parents completely buy into Madison's version of events. They sat me down for a serious conversation about being more generous with my sister and understanding that wedding planning was stressful. They suggested that maybe I was being too rigid about money and should consider helping Madison during such an important milestone. When I tried to explain about the previous unpaid loans, they dismissed my concerns as petty record-keeping that was unbecoming of family relationships. The final breaking point came 2 weeks ago during a family barbecue at our parents' house. Madison had spent the entire afternoon making passive-aggressive comments about people who prioritize money over family bonds. She talked loudly about how grateful she was to have a fiancé who understood the importance of supporting loved ones unconditionally. Every comment was clearly directed at me, designed to make me feel guilty and selfish in front of our extended family. When I finally pulled Madison aside to ask her to stop the public humiliation, she exploded. She accused me of trying to control the conversation because I could not handle hearing the truth about my own character flaws. She claimed I had always been manipulative and controlling, using money as a weapon to make family members feel indebted to me. According to Madison, my entire personality was built around making others feel inferior so I could maintain a sense of superiority. The argument escalated quickly, with Madison raising her voice loud enough for everyone at the barbecue to hear. She declared that she was tired of walking on eggshells around my ego, and that the family would be better off if I learned to be more supportive instead of constantly creating drama over petty issues. By the time the confrontation ended, most of our relatives had witnessed what appeared to be me attacking Madison for no reason, while she defended herself with grace and dignity. That night, I drove home feeling completely isolated and misunderstood. I had spent years being the reliable daughter who never asked for anything, who quietly helped whenever possible, and who always tried to keep family harmony intact. Yet somehow, I had become the problem that needed to be managed and corrected. Over the following weeks, Madison's campaign against me intensified through subtle social media posts and carefully worded conversations with family members. She never said anything directly attacking, but she consistently portrayed herself as the victim of my unreasonable expectations and controlling behavior. Photos from family gatherings showed everyone smiling except me, with captions about how blessed Madison felt to have such a supportive family during her wedding planning journey. The manipulation was so skillful that even I began questioning whether my boundaries around money lending were too harsh. Maybe I was being unreasonable by keeping track of unpaid loans. Maybe I should just accept that family relationships were more important than financial accountability. Madison had successfully convinced everyone that my desire for repayment was evidence of a cold, calculating personality that prioritized money over love. But what no one knew, including Madison, was that I had been secretly covering our parents' medical expenses for the past 2 years. When Dad had his heart attack and Mom needed surgery for her hip replacement, their insurance had covered only 60% of the costs. The remaining bills totaled nearly $15,000, threatening to drain their retirement savings and force them to consider selling the family home they had lived in for 38 years. I had quietly arranged to pay the medical bills directly to the hospitals and specialists, asking the billing departments to simply mark the accounts as paid without revealing the payment source. Our parents believed their insurance had somehow covered more than expected, or that the hospitals had written off the remaining balances as charity care. They never knew that their financial security had been preserved by the same daughter Madison was painting as selfish and money-obsessed. The irony was devastating. While Madison criticized my character and financial priorities in front of our entire family, I was literally ensuring that our parents could afford their medications and keep their home. While she painted me as someone who cared more about money than family, I was sacrificing my own financial goals to protect the people I loved most. The Facebook post appeared on my timeline at exactly 11:43 in the morning, and within minutes it began spreading through our social network like wildfire. Madison had carefully crafted her public announcement to maximize emotional impact and social validation. The post read, "Finally blocking my toxic sister. Family is better without her drama. Some people never change no matter how many chances you give them. Grateful for the family members who truly understand what love and support mean. Moving forward with positive energy and surrounding myself with people who celebrate happiness instead of creating conflict." The strategic brilliance of Madison's wording was immediately apparent. She had positioned herself as the long-suffering victim who had finally found the courage to set healthy boundaries. The phrase, "no matter how many chances you give them," suggested that she had been patient and forgiving for years before reaching this difficult decision. The reference to people who celebrate happiness implied that I was someone who actively tried to sabotage her joy and success. Within the first hour, 47 people had commented with supportive messages for Madison. Our Aunt Caroline wrote, "I always knew there was something off about Dana. Madison, you're so strong for finally standing up for yourself." Our cousin Jennifer added, "Family should lift you up, not tear you down. You deserve better, sweetie." Even family friends who had known me since childhood were expressing shock and disappointment about my alleged behavior. The comments section became an echo chamber of validation for Madison's narrative. People shared their own stories about cutting toxic family members out of their lives, praising Madison for her courage in making such a difficult decision. Several comments specifically mentioned how Madison had always been the sweet, creative one in the family, while expressing concern about my apparent personality changes over the years. My phone started buzzing constantly with text messages and calls from concerned friends who had seen the post. High school classmates were reaching out to ask what had happened between Madison and me. College friends were expressing confusion about the situation since they had always heard me speak lovingly about my sister during our university years. Former colleagues from my previous corporate job were sending careful diplomatic messages asking if I was okay and whether there was anything they could do to help. The most painful messages came from family members who were clearly trying to remain neutral while processing this public revelation. My cousin Brian texted, "Hey, saw Madison's post. Not sure what happened, but hope you two can work things out." Our Uncle Peter called and left a voicemail saying he was confused about the family drama and hoped everyone could find a way to resolve their differences peacefully. But the worst part was watching longtime friends begin to distance themselves in real time. People who had been part of my social circle for years started unfriending me on Facebook and Instagram. Invitations to upcoming social events were quietly rescinded through awkward phone calls where hosts explained that they did not want to create uncomfortable situations by having both sisters present. Madison had timed her post perfectly, knowing that I would be at work and unable to respond immediately. By the time I could process what was happening and consider how to address the situation, the narrative had already solidified in people's minds. Any response I made would appear defensive and potentially prove Madison's point about me being dramatic and conflict-oriented. The professional implications were equally devastating. Several business contacts who followed my personal social media accounts reached out with concerned questions about my family's situation. While they were diplomatically worded, the underlying message was clear. They were reassessing their professional relationships with someone who appeared to have serious, personal conflicts that had spilled into the public sphere. Former colleagues from my previous corporate position at Henderson Marketing Group were commenting on Madison's post with supportive messages, having worked with both of us during company family events over the years. Sarah Mitchell, who had been my closest work friend, wrote, "Madison, I'm so sorry you've been dealing with this. You always seemed so happy and positive when you visited the office. Sending you love and support." The betrayal cut deep because these people had witnessed my professional demeanor and work ethic for years. They had seen me handle difficult clients with patience and grace, manage complex projects without creating drama, and maintain positive relationships with colleagues at every level. Yet Madison's public post was powerful enough to make them question everything they thought they knew about my character. As the day progressed, Madison continued to engage with the supportive comments, liking each message and responding with gratitude for people's understanding and encouragement. She was actively nurturing the narrative, keeping the conversation alive, and ensuring that her version of events remained at the forefront of everyone's minds. The most devastating moment came when I discovered that Madison had been privately messaging family members for weeks, preparing them for this public announcement. Screenshots that friends forwarded to me revealed conversations where Madison had been systematically building a case against my character, sharing selective memories and private family moments that painted me as manipulative and controlling. In these private messages, Madison had described incidents from our childhood and teenage years, reframing normal sibling interactions as evidence of my problematic personality. She claimed that I had always been jealous of her artistic talents and had tried to undermine her confidence throughout our lives. She suggested that my academic and professional successes were driven by an unhealthy need to prove my superiority over her creative pursuits. Madison had even shared carefully edited portions of our recent conversations about the wedding loan, removing all context about her previous unpaid debts and presenting my refusal as arbitrary cruelty toward her happiness. She had transformed a reasonable boundary about financial responsibility into evidence of my selfish and unsupportive nature. The preparation for this public character assassination had been methodical and calculated. Madison had spent weeks laying the groundwork, ensuring that when she finally posted her announcement, family members and friends would already be primed to accept her version of events without question. By evening, the post had been shared by 12 family members and had received over 200 comments and reactions. Madison's phone was probably buzzing with supportive calls and messages from people rallying around her during this difficult time. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my apartment watching my reputation and relationships crumble, in real time feeling completely powerless to defend myself without appearing to prove Madison's point about my dramatic and toxic behavior. The public humiliation was complete and devastating, but Madison had no idea that she had just declared war on someone who possessed the power to change her life with a single phone call. I sat in my corner office on the 32nd floor of the Meridian building, looking out at the downtown skyline as the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view that never failed to remind me how far I had come since those days of working 3 jobs in college. From this height, the streets below looked like intricate circuits on a computer motherboard, which seemed fitting given the nature of my business. Nextech Solutions occupied the entire 32nd floor with clean lines, modern furniture, and state-of-the-art equipment that reflected our position as a leading software development company. The open workspace buzzed with quiet productivity as 47 employees worked on projects ranging from mobile applications for healthcare systems to complex database management solutions for Fortune 500 companies. Nobody in my family knew about any of this. 2 years ago, I had left my position as Senior Marketing Director at Henderson Marketing Group to pursue an entrepreneurial dream that had been growing in my mind for years. During my corporate career, I had witnessed countless companies struggling with outdated software systems and inefficient digital workflows. The technology solutions existed to solve these problems, but most businesses lacked the expertise to implement them effectively, or the budget to hire the massive consulting firms that dominated the market. I saw an opportunity to create a company that could bridge this gap, offering sophisticated software solutions with the personalized service and competitive pricing that smaller businesses desperately needed. With my marketing background and a natural aptitude for understanding complex systems, I felt confident that I could build something significant in this space. The decision to keep my business venture secret from my family had been deliberate and strategic. I knew that if Madison learned about my entrepreneurial success, it would immediately become another source of conflict and resentment. She would either demand financial support for her various projects or find ways to diminish my achievements by claiming that I was showing off or trying to make her feel inadequate about her own career choices. More importantly, I wanted to build something substantial without the pressure of family expectations or the distraction of constant questions about my progress. I had watched too many entrepreneurs struggle with well-meaning family members who offered unsolicited advice or created stress by treating every business challenge as a family crisis that required emotional intervention. My business partner Jessica Hammond handled our public relations and client outreach, while I focused on product development and strategic planning. Jessica had her MBA from Northwestern and had spent 8 years working for tech startups before we connected through a networking event for women entrepreneurs. She understood the importance of maintaining professional boundaries and had never questioned my decision to keep my family separate from our business operations. Together, we had built Nextech Solutions into a company that generated $8.2 million in annual revenue and maintained long-term contracts with 17 major clients across the Midwest. Our reputation for delivering innovative solutions on time and within budget had led to a waiting list of potential clients who wanted to work with us. The irony of my current situation was almost too perfect to believe. Morrison Industries had been our biggest client for the past 14 months, representing nearly 30% of our annual revenue. Their CEO, Robert Morrison, had hired us to develop a comprehensive software integration system that would streamline their manufacturing processes and improve communication between their 12 facilities across 6 states. The project had been incredibly successful, saving Morrison Industries over $2 million in operational costs during the first year of implementation. Robert had been so impressed with our work that he had recommended our services to 3 other companies in his professional network, leading to additional contracts worth over $1 million combined. Yesterday afternoon, Robert had called to inform me that they were hiring a new director of digital operations, who would be responsible for managing the ongoing relationship with Nextech Solutions and overseeing the expansion of our software integration to additional departments within Morrison Industries. He was excited about the hire, describing her as someone with innovative ideas and fresh perspectives that would take their digital transformation to the next level. That new director of digital operations was Madison. As I processed this information, pieces of a puzzle began falling into place with disturbing clarity. During our family barbecue 6 weeks ago, Madison had spent considerable time asking me seemingly casual questions about my work and career goals. She had been particularly interested in hearing about successful software companies and had asked detailed questions about what made certain tech businesses more innovative than others. At the time, I had assumed she was making polite conversation, or perhaps considering a career change from her current position as a graphic designer for a small advertising agency. Madison had always been interested in creative fields, and technology represented a natural evolution of her artistic interests into more lucrative territory. But now I realized that Madison had been conducting research-gathering information that she could use to present herself as knowledgeable about software development and digital innovation during job interviews. The casual questions about industry trends and successful business strategies had been intelligence gathering, not sisterly curiosity. The most disturbing revelation came when I remembered Madison borrowing my laptop during that same barbecue, claiming that her phone battery had died and she needed to check an important email from her wedding venue coordinator. I had not thought twice about letting her use my computer since we had shared devices countless times throughout our lives without any issues. During the 20 minutes she spent with my laptop, Madison could have accessed my email account's business documents or any number of files that contain proprietary information about Nextech Solutions and our client relationships. She could have reviewed our proposals, strategic plans, client communications, or even our financial projections. The thought made my stomach turn as I realized the extent of Madison's deception. She had not only stolen my ideas and business intelligence, but had used that information to position herself as an innovative thinker during her interviews with Morrison Industries. The fresh perspectives and innovative ideas that had impressed Robert Morrison were actually my own strategic insights gathered through years of experience and presented by Madison as her original thinking. I reached for my phone to call Robert Morrison, knowing that I needed to address this situation immediately before Madison could cause further damage to my business relationships or compromise additional proprietary information. The irony was almost poetic. Madison's public attack on my character had revealed her own unethical behavior and given me the perfect opportunity to protect my company from someone who had already proven herself willing to steal intellectual property for personal gain. The Facebook post that was supposed to destroy my reputation was about to become the catalyst for Madison learning that actions have consequences she never could have imagined. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Robert Morrison's direct number, taking a deep breath before placing the call that would change everything. My hands were steady now, the initial shock of Madison's betrayal, having transformed into cold determination to protect my business and the 47 employees who depended on Nextech Solutions for their livelihoods. Robert answered on the second ring, his familiar voice warm and professional. "Dana, good to hear from you. How are things going with the Morrison account updates? Robert, I'm calling about something more delicate than our usual business discussions. I need to share some information about your new hire, Madison Brooks, that affects both our professional relationship and the security of your company's proprietary information. The line went quiet for a moment as Robert processed my serious tone. During our 14 months of working together, our conversations had always been collaborative and positive, focused on problem solving and strategic planning. This was the first time I had ever contacted him with concerns about potential security issues. Of course, Dana. What's going on? I chose my words carefully, focusing on the business implications rather than personal family drama. Madison Brooks is my sister, and I recently discovered that she has been accessing my confidential business files and communications without authorization. The innovative ideas and fresh perspectives she presented during her interviews with Morrison Industries were actually proprietary strategies and concepts she stole from Nextech Solutions documentation. Robert's sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. Are you absolutely certain about this, Dana? Unfortunately, yes. I have evidence that Madison accessed my business email accounts and strategic planning documents during a family gathering 6 weeks ago. The timing corresponds exactly with her interview preparation period, and several concepts she presented to your hiring team are identical to proposals I developed for other clients during the past year. I continued with specific examples describing the client acquisition strategies and process optimization frameworks that Madison had apparently presented as her own original thinking. These were complex methodologies that I had developed through years of experience and extensive research into industry best practices. There was no way Madison could have independently arrived at identical conclusions without access to my proprietary documentation. Robert's voice became noticeably cooler as he absorbed the implications. Dana, this is extremely concerning. We hired Madison specifically because her ideas demonstrated sophisticated understanding of software integration challenges and innovative approaches to digital transformation. If she misrepresented her qualifications by presenting stolen intellectual property as her own work, we have serious liability issues to consider. I understand the difficult position this puts Morrison Industries in, Robert. I'm bringing this to your attention because I value our professional relationship and want to prevent any potential conflicts of interest or security breaches that could affect your company's operations. Can you provide documentation of these proprietary concepts and the timeline of when Madison would have had access to your confidential information? I had anticipated this question and had already prepared a comprehensive file containing time-stamped emails, document creation dates, and detailed descriptions of the strategic frameworks in question. I can send you everything within the hour, including digital forensics evidence showing when my accounts were accessed from unauthorized devices. Robert was quiet for several minutes, and I could hear him typing notes on his computer. When he spoke again, his tone was strictly professional. Dana, I want to thank you for bringing this situation to my attention. Given the nature of the allegations and the potential impact on Morrison Industries' intellectual property security, we need to take immediate action to protect our interests. I completely understand, Robert. I'm not asking you to take any specific action regarding Madison's employment, but I felt obligated to inform you about the intellectual property theft and potential misrepresentation during the hiring process. Actually, Dana, there's something else you should know that makes this situation even more problematic. During our preliminary conversations before the formal interview process, Madison contacted me claiming to be your business representative. She suggested that she could negotiate more favorable contract terms for our relationship with Nextech Solutions, and implied that she had authorization to speak on your company's behalf. My blood ran cold as I processed this revelation. Madison had not only stolen my business strategies, but had attempted to position herself as an intermediary in my client relationships, potentially undermining contracts that represented millions of dollars in revenue for Nextech Solutions. Robert, I want to be absolutely clear. Madison Brooks has never been authorized to represent Nextech Solutions in any capacity. Any communications she had with Morrison Industries using my company's name were completely unauthorized and constitute potential fraud. I suspected something was off about that conversation, which is why I never followed up on her suggestions about renegotiating our contract terms. But combined with today's revelations about stolen intellectual property, this creates a pattern of misrepresentation that we cannot ignore. The conversation continued for another 15 minutes as Robert asked detailed questions about Madison's access to client information and the potential scope of compromised proprietary data. I provided honest, thorough answers while maintaining my professional demeanor despite the personal nature of the situation. By the end of our call, Robert had made his decision. Dana, based on the information you've provided and the evidence of misrepresentation during our hiring process, Morrison Industries will be rescinding Madison Brooks' employment offer immediately. We cannot risk hiring someone who has demonstrated willingness to steal intellectual property and misrepresent their qualifications. I appreciate your thorough consideration of this situation, Robert. I know it puts Morrison Industries in a difficult position, but I felt I had no choice but to share this information given the potential security implications. You absolutely made the right decision, Dana. Our legal team will be contacting Madison within the hour to formally rescind the offer and inform her of the reasons for our decision. We take intellectual property theft very seriously, and this kind of behavior is completely unacceptable in any professional context. After ending the call with Robert, I sat back in my office chair and looked out at the city skyline again. The late afternoon sun was beginning to set, casting the downtown buildings in shades of gold and amber that seemed to mirror the justice that was finally beginning to unfold. Madison's dream job offer would be rescinded within 30 minutes, and she would finally face real consequences for her pattern of manipulation and theft. The Facebook post that was supposed to destroy my reputation had instead revealed her own unethical behavior and protected my business from someone who had already proven herself willing to steal proprietary information for personal gain. The phone on my desk rang almost immediately, and I knew without looking at the caller ID that Madison had somehow learned about Robert Morrison's decision. The real confrontation was about to begin, and Madison was about to discover that her systematic campaign to destroy my character had consequences she never could have anticipated. Exactly 28 minutes after my conversation with Robert Morrison ended, my phone erupted with Madison's hysterical ringtone. I let it ring twice before answering, steeling myself for what I knew would be an explosive confrontation. Dana, Madison's voice was shrill and trembling with rage. I just got a call from Morrison Industries. They rescinded my job offer. They said there were issues with misrepresentation during the interview process. I know you did something. I know you sabotaged me. I kept my voice calm and measured, refusing to match her emotional intensity. Madison, I'm not sure why you would think I had anything to do with Morrison Industries' hiring decisions. I don't understand what kind of influence you believe I would have with their company. Don't lie to me. This is too much of a coincidence. I post about cutting you out of my life and suddenly my job offer disappears. You somehow got to them, didn't you? You probably called them with lies about me because you can't stand seeing me succeed. The accusation was delivered with such conviction that I almost admired Madison's ability to maintain her victim narrative even when faced with consequences for her own actions. She genuinely seemed to believe that my supposed jealousy and vindictiveness were the only possible explanation for her professional setback. Madison, you're making some pretty serious accusations without any evidence. If Morrison Industries had concerns about your qualifications or interview process, that would be a matter between you and their human resources department. I'm not sure why you think I would be involved in their internal hiring decisions. Because nothing else makes sense, I had that job locked up. They loved my ideas. They were impressed with my vision for their digital transformation. Everything was perfect until today. The only thing that changed was your little tantrum about my Facebook post. The irony of Madison calling my measured response a tantrum while she screamed accusations through the phone was not lost on me. I could hear her pacing frantically in the background, her breathing rapid and shallow as she worked herself into an even greater state of agitation. Madison, if you're truly confused about why Morrison Industries changed their mind, perhaps you should ask them directly for specific feedback about their concerns. Most companies are willing to provide general information about hiring decisions when candidates request clarification. I already tried that. The HR representative just kept repeating some legal script about misrepresentation and intellectual property concerns. It doesn't make any sense unless someone fed them lies about me, and the only person who would do that is you. My heart rate quickened as Madison inadvertently revealed that Morrison Industries had specifically mentioned intellectual property concerns during their conversation with her. She was digging herself deeper into a hole without realizing it, providing me with additional confirmation that Robert Morrison had acted swiftly and professionally in addressing the situation. Intellectual property concerns sound pretty serious, Madison. Are you sure you fully understood what they were referring to? Sometimes these corporate legal issues can be complex and involve factors that aren't immediately obvious. Stop pretending like you don't know what's going on. I know you somehow convinced them that I wasn't qualified or that I had done something wrong. You probably told them I was unstable or unreliable. You've been trying to sabotage my career for years, and now you finally found a way to do it. The conversation continued for another 12 minutes with Madison oscillating between rage and desperate pleading. She begged me to call Morrison Industries and correct whatever lies I had supposedly told them. She promised to delete the Facebook post and apologize publicly if I would just fix the situation with her job offer. She even offered to pay me back all the money she owed if I would help her get the position back. But throughout her emotional roller coaster, Madison never once acknowledged the possibility that her own actions might have caused the problem. She never asked herself why a reputable company would cite intellectual property concerns when rescinding a job offer. She never considered that her attempt to represent herself as my business partner might have raised red flags during Morrison Industries' background verification process. The most telling moment came when Madison accidentally revealed information that she should not have possessed. I don't understand why they're making such a big deal about me mentioning Next-Tech Solutions during my interviews. I was just trying to show that I understood their current software integration challenges and had ideas for improvement. I felt my breath catch as Madison casually admitted to discussing my company by name during her job interviews. She had just confirmed that she had not only stolen my business strategies, but had actively referenced Next-Tech Solutions as part of her pitch to Morrison Industries, potentially creating the impression that she had some official connection to my company. Madison, how did you know that Morrison Industries was working with Next-Tech Solutions? That's not information that would typically be shared with job candidates during the interview process. There was a long pause as Madison realized she had revealed something she should not have known. When she spoke again, her voice was defensive and evasive. I must have read about it somewhere, or maybe someone mentioned it during the interviews. I don't remember exactly. That seems unlikely, Madison. Client relationships are typically confidential information that companies don't discuss with external candidates. Are you sure you didn't learn about Morrison Industries' connection to Next-Tech Solutions through some other means? Another pause, longer this time, followed by Madison's voice becoming even more agitated. Why are you interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal? The point is that my job offer got rescinded, and I know you're responsible somehow. Just admit what you did and help me fix this. The conversation was providing me with valuable insights into Madison's mental state and her understanding of the situation. She clearly knew more about my business relationships than she should have, but she seemed genuinely confused about why that knowledge would be problematic. In her mind, stealing information and misrepresenting her qualifications were acceptable strategies for advancing her career, and any consequences for those actions were unfair persecution orchestrated by jealous family members. Madison, I think you should focus on having an honest conversation with Morrison Industries about their specific concerns. If there are misunderstandings that can be cleared up, that would be the most direct way to address the situation. There's nothing to clear up. I didn't do anything wrong. I just tried to show them that I understood their business challenges and had creative solutions to offer. If they have a problem with that, it's because someone poisoned them against me. The call ended with Madison hanging up abruptly after delivering one final accusation. I know you did this, Dana, and when I figure out how, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are. As I set my phone down, I realized that Madison's reaction had revealed far more than she intended. Her knowledge of confidential business information, her admission to discussing Nextech solutions during interviews, and her complete lack of understanding about intellectual property concerns painted a clear picture of someone who had systematically stolen proprietary information without recognizing the legal and ethical implications of her actions. The Facebook post that was supposed to destroy my reputation was turning into the catalyst for exposing Madison's pattern of deception and theft. Robert Morrison had acted swiftly and professionally to protect his company's interests, and Madison was about to learn that her actions had consequences extending far beyond the loss of a single job opportunity. The following morning, I arrived at my office determined to understand the full scope of Madison's unauthorized access to my business information. The conversation with Robert Morrison and Madison's inadvertent revelations during our phone call had raised serious concerns about potential data breaches and intellectual property theft that could affect not only Nextech Solutions, but also our clients' confidential information. I called Thomas Rodriguez, a digital forensics specialist who had helped several companies in our professional network investigate cybersecurity incidents and data breaches. Thomas operated an independent consulting firm that specialized in tracking unauthorized computer access and documenting evidence for potential legal proceedings. Thomas, I need your expertise for a sensitive situation involving potential unauthorized access to my business accounts and confidential files. Someone may have gained access to proprietary information and used it for personal gain, and I need to understand exactly what happened and when. Thomas arrived at my office within 2 hours, bringing specialized equipment and software designed to trace digital footprints and recover detailed access logs from various devices and accounts. He was a meticulous professional who understood the legal requirements for documenting evidence that might eventually be used in court proceedings. The investigation began with my laptop, the device Madison had borrowed during the family barbecue 6 weeks earlier. Thomas connected specialized diagnostic equipment and began running comprehensive scans to identify any unauthorized access to files, email accounts, or cloud storage systems during the time frame when Madison had been using the computer. Within 30 minutes, Thomas had discovered evidence of extensive unauthorized activity during the 20-minute period when Madison claimed to be checking an email from her wedding venue coordinator. The forensics analysis revealed that she had accessed my business email accounts, opened multiple confidential client files, and downloaded several strategic planning documents onto a USB drive that she had apparently brought to the barbecue for that specific purpose. Dana, this wasn't casual browsing or accidental access, Thomas explained as he showed me the detailed activity logs. Someone with deliberate intent systematically accessed your most sensitive business files and copied them to an external storage device. The pattern suggests they knew exactly what they were looking for and where to find it. The scope of Madison's data theft was staggering. She had accessed client proposals worth over $2 million in potential revenue strategic planning documents outlining Nextech Solutions' expansion goals for the next 3 years, and confidential communications with major clients discussing their internal business challenges and proprietary processes. Even more disturbing was the discovery that Madison had attempted to access our client database containing contact information, contract details, and project histories for all 43 companies we had worked with during the past 2 years. She'd been unsuccessful in breaking through the database encryption, but the attempt demonstrated clear intent to steal comprehensive business intelligence. Thomas continued his investigation by examining the access logs for my cloud storage accounts and email systems. The forensics analysis revealed that Madison had set up unauthorized forwarding rules in my email accounts, ensuring that copies of all incoming client communications would be automatically sent to an anonymous email address that she controlled. She's been receiving copies of your confidential business correspondence for the past 6 weeks. Thomas informed me, his expression grave. Every proposal, every client meeting summary, every strategic planning discussion has been forwarded to her secondary email account without your knowledge. The email forwarding system was sophisticated enough to avoid detection by standard security protocols. Madison had configured the rules to forward copies of messages, rather than redirecting them, ensuring that I would continue to receive my normal correspondence without realizing that duplicate copies were being sent elsewhere. As Thomas dug deeper into the forensics analysis, we discovered evidence that Madison had been using the stolen business intelligence for purposes beyond her Morrison Industries job application. She had created detailed competitive analysis documents comparing Nextech Solutions strategies and pricing to those of our primary competitors, suggesting that she was planning to use the information to start her own competing business or sell the intelligence to established competitors. The most damaging discovery came when Thomas found evidence that Madison had been actively soliciting our clients through a fake consulting website that she had created using business strategies and methodologies stolen directly from our proprietary documentation. The website, called Digital Innovation Consulting, presented Madison as an independent consultant specializing in software integration and digital transformation services. 3 of our existing clients had actually been contacted by Madison through this fake consulting operation. She had reached out to them with proposals offering similar services to what they were already receiving from Nextech Solutions, but at significantly reduced prices that would have been impossible to deliver profitably without access to our existing work and documentation. This goes way beyond intellectual property theft, Thomas explained as he documented the evidence. She's been engaging in systematic corporate espionage and attempting to use stolen business intelligence to compete directly with your company. The fake consulting website and client solicitation could constitute wire fraud and computer crimes under federal law. The investigation also revealed that Madison had been monitoring our social media accounts and professional networking profiles, gathering information about our employees, client relationships, and business development activities. She had created detailed profiles of our key personnel and had even attempted to connect with several of our employees through LinkedIn using fake professional credentials. Thomas spent the remainder of the day creating comprehensive documentation of all unauthorized access events, data theft incidents, and evidence of Madison's attempts to monetize the stolen information. The forensics report included detailed timestamps, file access logs, and screenshots of the fake consulting website that clearly demonstrated the scope and intent of Madison's criminal activity. Dana, I need to be completely honest with you about the seriousness of this situation, Thomas said as he prepared his final report. What we've discovered here represents multiple federal crimes, including computer fraud, wire fraud, and theft of trade secrets. The dollar value of the stolen intellectual property and the interstate nature of your business operations put this squarely in federal jurisdiction. The investigation had transformed what initially appeared to be a family conflict into a serious criminal matter, with potential implications for the security and financial stability of my entire company. Madison's systematic theft of proprietary information posed ongoing risks to Nextech Solutions and our clients, and her attempts to use the stolen data for competitive purposes could result in significant financial damages if not addressed immediately. As Thomas packed up his equipment and prepared to deliver his formal forensics report, I realized that Madison's Facebook post attacking my character had inadvertently exposed her own criminal behavior and provided me with the evidence needed to protect my business and hold her accountable for actions that extended far beyond family drama into serious federal crimes. Armed with Thomas Rodriguez's comprehensive forensics report and documented evidence of Madison's criminal activities, I knew it was time to address the situation with our family before pursuing legal action. I needed our parents and relatives to understand the truth about Madison's behavior and the serious nature of her actions rather than allowing them to continue believing her narrative about family drama and personality conflicts. I called our mother and asked her to organize a family meeting at their house for the following Sunday afternoon. I explained that I had important information to share about the recent conflicts with Madison, and that it was crucial for everyone to understand the full scope of what had been happening behind the scenes. "Dana, honey, I'm glad you're finally ready to work things out with your sister," Mom said, her voice filled with relief. "This whole situation has been so hard on everyone. Madison has been absolutely devastated about losing that job opportunity, and she really believes you had something to do with it." I chose my words carefully, not wanting to reveal the specifics over the phone, but needing to convey the seriousness of the situation. "Mom, this isn't about working things out or resolving personality differences. I have evidence of serious misconduct that affects not just our family, but also my business and potentially other people's livelihoods. Everyone needs to see this information before the situation gets any worse." The family gathering took place in our parents' living room, the same space where countless holiday celebrations and important family discussions had occurred throughout our lives. Our parents sat together on their worn leather sofa, while Aunt Caroline and Uncle Peter occupied the matching armchairs they always claimed during family events. Madison arrived 15 minutes late, her demeanor confident and defiant as she prepared to continue her campaign against my character. "Before anyone says anything," Madison announced as she settled into the remaining chair, "I want everyone to know that I've been getting harassing phone calls and messages ever since I posted about cutting Dana out of my life. Someone has been trying to sabotage my career and my reputation, and I have a pretty good idea who's behind it." I waited for Madison to finish her opening statement before responding calmly and directly. "Madison, I asked everyone to gather here today because I have documented evidence that you've been engaging in criminal activities that affect not only my business, but potentially our entire family's financial security." The room went silent as family members processed my serious tone and formal language. This was clearly not the emotional reconciliation or family therapy session they had been expecting. I opened my laptop and connected it to the large television screen that our father had mounted on the wall for family movie nights. The first document that appeared was Thomas Rodriguez's executive summary, outlining the scope and nature of Madison's unauthorized computer access and data theft activities. 6 weeks ago during our family barbecue, Madison borrowed my laptop claiming she needed to check an email from her wedding venue coordinator. What she actually did was systematically access my confidential business files, steal proprietary information worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and copy client data to a USB drive that she had brought specifically for that purpose. I clicked through the forensics timeline showing exact timestamps of when Madison had accessed specific files and email accounts. The evidence was presented clearly and professionally with technical details explained in language that everyone could understand. Madison's face had gone pale, but she maintained her defensive posture. "This is ridiculous. I used your computer for 20 minutes to check one email. I didn't steal anything or access any business files. This is just more evidence of how paranoid and controlling Dana has become." "Madison, these are forensics reports from a certified digital investigator." I continued displaying screen captures of the unauthorized file access activity. "The evidence shows that you downloaded client proposals, strategic planning documents, and confidential correspondence to an external storage device during those 20 minutes. Our father leaned forward, studying the technical documentation with the careful attention to detail that had made him successful as an electrical contractor for 42 years. "Madison, these timestamps and file access logs look pretty detailed and specific. Can you explain why this evidence would exist if you only checked one email?" "Because Dana is making this whole thing up. She probably created fake computer logs to try to frame me for something I didn't do. This is exactly the kind of manipulative behavior I was talking about in my Facebook post. I clicked to the next section of evidence showing Madison's fake consulting website and her attempts to solicit our existing clients using stolen business strategies. Madison, this website called Digital Innovation Consulting, uses proprietary methodologies that I developed for Nextech Solutions. The business strategies, pricing models, and service descriptions are identical to confidential documents that you accessed on my laptop. The room remained silent as family members read through the website content and compared it to the stolen business documents displayed side by side on the screen. The similarities were impossible to deny or explain away as coincidence. Aunt Caroline broke the silence with a question directed at Madison. "Sweetheart, when did you start this consulting business? I thought you were working as a graphic designer and looking for jobs in digital marketing." Madison's response was increasingly frantic and defensive. "I was just exploring different career options and doing research about consulting opportunities. There's nothing wrong with learning about software integration or digital transformation strategies." "Madison," I continued, "the forensics investigation also found evidence that you've been receiving copies of all my business emails for the past 6 weeks through unauthorized forwarding rules that you set up in my accounts. You've been monitoring my client communications, contract negotiations, and strategic planning discussions without my knowledge or consent." I displayed the email forwarding logs and showed examples of confidential client communications that had been automatically copied to Madison's secondary email account. The evidence included sensitive discussions about client budget constraints, internal business challenges, and proprietary technical specifications that could be extremely valuable to competitors. Our mother's voice was barely above a whisper as she processed the implications. "Madison, honey, are you saying that none of this evidence is accurate because it looks very detailed and professional? It's all fake. Dana is trying to destroy my life because she can't handle the fact that I finally stood up to her toxic behavior. She's probably been planning this for months, just waiting for an excuse to attack me." The final piece of evidence was the most devastating. I displayed bank records showing that I had been secretly paying our parents' medical bills for the past 2 years, covering over $15,000 in expenses that their insurance had not fully covered. While Madison has been criticizing my financial priorities and claiming that I care more about money than family, I explained to the stunned room, "I've been ensuring that Mom and Dad could afford their medications and keep their home by paying their medical bills directly to the hospitals and specialists." Our father's eyes filled with tears as he realized the extent of my financial support during their health crises. "Dana, we had no idea. We thought the insurance had covered more than we expected, or that the hospitals had written off some of the costs. I asked the billing departments to mark your accounts as paid without revealing the payment source because I didn't want you to worry about the financial burden or feel like you owed me anything for helping family during a difficult time." Madison's composure finally cracked completely as the weight of evidence and family testimony became impossible to deny or deflect. "You're all turning against me. This is exactly what Dana wanted. She's been planning this whole setup to make me look bad and turn everyone against me." Our mother spoke with a firmness that I had rarely heard from her. "Madison, this isn't about taking sides or family loyalty. These are serious accusations with documentation and evidence. If even half of what Dana is showing us is true, you've committed crimes that could send you to prison." The room fell silent again as the full implications of Madison's actions became clear to everyone present. This was no longer a family dispute about personality conflicts or money lending. It was a criminal matter that threatened the financial security of my business, the privacy of my clients, and the reputation of our entire family. Madison finally broke down completely, admitting through tears that she had been jealous of my success and had convinced herself that stealing my business information was justified because I had always been the favored daughter who got better opportunities. The confession was devastating and complete, revealing years of resentment and manipulation that had culminated in criminal behavior. The morning after our family confrontation, I contacted Patricia Williams, a criminal defense attorney who specialized in white-collar crimes and computer fraud cases. Patricia had been recommended by Thomas Rodriguez as someone who understood the complexities of intellectual property theft and could guide me through the legal options available for addressing Madison's criminal activities. Patricia's office was located in the downtown legal district, occupying the 15th floor of a glass tower that housed several prestigious law firms. Her conference room overlooked the federal courthouse, where many computer fraud cases were prosecuted, a view that seemed appropriate given the nature of our meeting. Ms. Brooks. Patricia began as she reviewed Thomas Rodriguez's forensics report. What your sister has done constitutes multiple serious federal crimes. The unauthorized access to your computer systems falls under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, while the theft of trade secrets and client information violates federal intellectual property laws. Patricia explained that the interstate nature of my business operations and the dollar value of the stolen information elevated Madison's crimes to federal jurisdiction, where penalties were significantly more severe than state-level charges. The systematic nature of the data theft combined with Madison's attempts to monetize the stolen information through her fake consulting business demonstrated clear intent and premeditation that would influence sentencing recommendations. The forwarding of your email communications to unauthorized accounts constitutes wire fraud, Patricia continued, and her attempts to solicit your clients using stolen business strategies could be prosecuted as mail fraud and conspiracy to commit theft of trade secrets. We're looking at potential federal prison time ranging from 3 to 7 years, depending on how prosecutors decide to structure the charges. The financial implications were equally severe. Madison could be held liable for actual damages to Nextech Solutions, including lost revenue from clients who might have been compromised by the data breach costs associated with investigating and remedying the security violations and punitive damages designed to deter similar criminal behavior. Based on the evidence in this forensics report, Patricia explained you could seek damages totaling several $100,000. The value of the stolen intellectual property alone exceeds $50,000, which triggers enhanced penalties under federal sentencing guidelines. Patricia recommended that I file a formal criminal complaint with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Cybercrime Unit, which specialized in prosecuting computer fraud and intellectual property theft cases. The FBI had established protocols for investigating these types of crimes and working with businesses to assess damages and prevent ongoing security threats. However, Patricia cautioned, you should understand that once federal prosecutors become involved, you lose control over whether charges are filed or how aggressively they're pursued. The government will make those decisions based on their assessment of the evidence and their prosecutorial priorities. We spent the next 2 hours reviewing the specific evidence and discussing the potential outcomes of various legal strategies. Patricia was thorough in explaining both the strengths of the case against Madison and the potential challenges that might arise during prosecution. The forensics evidence is extremely strong, she noted. Digital footprints are difficult to dispute, and your sister's admissions during the family meeting provide additional corroboration. The fake consulting website and client solicitation attempts demonstrate clear intent to profit from the stolen information, which strengthens the prosecution's case significantly. Patricia also explained the civil remedies available through federal court, including injunctive relief to prevent Madison from using any stolen information and monetary damages for the harm caused to my business. Civil litigation could proceed independently of criminal prosecution, allowing me to recover financial losses even if federal prosecutors decided not to pursue criminal charges. During our discussion, Patricia's paralegal brought in additional research about similar cases that had been prosecuted in our federal district. The precedents were encouraging from a prosecution standpoint, with defendants in comparable situations receiving substantial prison sentences and being ordered to pay significant restitution to victims. One case from last year involved a software developer who stole proprietary code from his former employer and used it to start a competing business, Patricia explained. The defendant received 4 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $300,000 in restitution, even though his theft was less systematic than what your sister accomplished. The research also revealed that federal prosecutors in our district had prioritized intellectual property theft cases, particularly those involving small businesses and entrepreneurs who were vulnerable to competitive sabotage. The Department of Justice had issued guidelines emphasizing the importance of protecting American innovation and entrepreneurship from domestic and international theft. Your case fits perfectly within those prosecutorial priorities, Patricia noted. You're a successful female entrepreneur who built a legitimate business, and your sister's actions represent exactly the kind of domestic threat to innovation that federal prosecutors want to address aggressively. As our meeting concluded, Patricia provided me with detailed instructions for filing the criminal complaint and gathering additional documentation that would support federal prosecution. She also recommended that I implement enhanced security measures for Nextech Solutions to prevent any additional unauthorized access and demonstrate to prosecutors that I was taking the situation seriously. Ms. Brooks, I want to be completely clear about the seriousness of your sister's actions, Patricia concluded. What she did wasn't a family dispute or a moment of poor judgment. It was systematic criminal activity that threatened your business, violated your client's privacy, and could have destroyed everything you worked to build. Federal prosecutors understand the difference between family drama and serious crimes, and they will treat this case accordingly. The meeting ended with Patricia agreeing to represent me through the federal complaint process and any subsequent criminal proceedings. She would also coordinate with the FBI's cybercrime unit to ensure that all evidence was properly preserved and presented according to federal prosecution standards. As I left Patricia's office, I reflected on how far the situation had escalated beyond Madison's original Facebook post attacking my character. What had started as public humiliation and family manipulation had revealed systematic criminal behavior that threatened not only my business, but potentially other entrepreneurs who might become targets of similar attacks. Madison was about to learn that her actions had consequences extending far beyond family relationships and personal conflicts. Federal prosecutors would evaluate her crimes based on evidence and law, not family loyalty or emotional manipulation, and the penalties for intellectual property theft were designed to reflect the serious economic harm that such crimes could cause to individuals and businesses. The following morning, I scheduled an emergency meeting with my business partner, Jessica Hammond, and our newly hired cybersecurity consultant, David Chen, to assess the full scope of damage from Madison's data breach and implement comprehensive security measures to protect our clients' confidential information. Our conference room felt different as we gathered around the polished oak table that had hosted countless strategic planning sessions and client presentations. The familiar space now carried the weight of a security crisis that threatened the foundation of trust we had built with our clients over the past 2 years. The forensics investigation has revealed that Madison gained access to confidential information from 17 of our current clients. I began placing printed copies of Thomas Rodriguez's detailed report in front of Jessica and David. We need to determine which clients were potentially affected and develop a communication strategy that maintains transparency while protecting our business relationships. David Chen had worked as a cybersecurity specialist for Fortune 500 companies before starting his consulting practice. His expertise in data breach response protocols and client communication strategies had been invaluable to several companies in our professional network that had faced similar security incidents. The first priority is immediate containment, David explained as he reviewed the forensics timeline. We need to change all system passwords, revoke access credentials that may have been compromised, and implement multi-factor authentication across all business accounts and client communication systems. Jessica focused on the client relationship implications, understanding that our reputation for trustworthiness and professionalism was our most valuable business asset. We need to contact affected clients immediately and explain the situation honestly. Trying to hide a data breach or minimize its significance would destroy our credibility and potentially expose us to legal liability. We spent the morning developing a comprehensive client notification strategy that balanced transparency with reassurance. Each affected client would receive a personalized phone call from me, followed by a detailed written explanation of the security incident, the specific information that may have been compromised, and the steps we were taking to prevent future breaches. The first call was to Robert Morrison, who had already been briefed on Madison's theft of intellectual property, but needed to understand the broader implications for Morrison Industries' confidential information. His response was surprisingly positive and supportive. Dana, I appreciate your immediate notification and transparent handling of this situation, Robert said during our call. The fact that you discovered the breach, investigated it thoroughly, and contacted affected clients proactively actually increases my confidence in Nextech Solutions rather than diminishing it. Similar responses came from other clients as we worked through the notification process. The transparency and quick action seemed to strengthen client relationships rather than damaging them, as companies appreciated our professional approach to crisis management and our commitment to protecting their interests. Margaret Foster, CEO of Advanced Manufacturing Solutions, expressed admiration for our ethical handling of a family crisis that could have been devastating to our business relationships. Dana, I've seen companies try to cover up data breaches or minimize their significance. Your immediate disclosure and comprehensive response plan demonstrate exactly the kind of integrity we want in our business partners. By midday, we had contacted all 17 affected clients and received universally positive responses to our crisis management approach. 3 clients expressed interest in expanding their contracts with Nextech Solutions, specifically citing our demonstrated commitment to security and ethical business practices as factors in their decision-making. David Chen worked throughout the afternoon implementing enhanced security protocols that would prevent future unauthorized access attempts. The new system required biometric authentication for all sensitive file access, encrypted all client communications with advanced security protocols, and created detailed audit trails for every system interaction. These security measures exceed industry standards for businesses of your size, David explained as he demonstrated the new protocols. You're implementing enterprise-level protection that will provide better security than most Fortune 500 companies maintain for their confidential information. The most surprising development came when Margaret Foster called back in the late afternoon with an unexpected proposal. Dana, our board of directors, met this afternoon to discuss our software integration needs for next year. Your professional handling of today's security incident has convinced us that Nextech Solutions is exactly the kind of partner we want for our most sensitive projects. Margaret's company was offering to triple their existing contract and had recommended Nextech Solutions to 3 other companies in their professional network. The crisis that could have destroyed our business reputation was instead generating new opportunities and strengthening existing relationships. We're also willing to serve as a reference for your security protocols and crisis management procedures, Margaret continued. Other companies need to see that effective data protection and ethical business practices are possible even for smaller firms that don't have unlimited cybersecurity budgets. Jessica and I exchanged amazed glances as we realized that Madison's attempt to sabotage our business had inadvertently created the most successful day in Nextech Solutions history. The new contracts and referrals would increase our annual revenue by over 30% and establish us as industry leaders in cybersecurity and ethical business practices. The afternoon concluded with David Chen providing comprehensive training for all Nextech Solutions employees on the new security protocols and data protection procedures. Every team member understood that maintaining client trust required constant vigilance and professional handling of sensitive information. The silver lining to this security incident, David noted during his training presentation is that you now have security measures and response protocols that position Nextech Solutions as an industry leader in data protection. Many companies could learn from your example of how to handle cybersecurity challenges professionally and ethically. As I reviewed the day's developments that evening, I marveled at the unexpected transformation of a crisis into an opportunity for business growth and industry recognition. Madison's systematic theft of proprietary information had forced us to implement security measures and crisis management protocols that exceeded industry standards and impressed our clients with our professionalism and integrity. The Facebook post that was supposed to destroy my reputation had instead revealed Madison's criminal behavior, protected our business from ongoing security threats, and generated the most successful business development day in our company's history. Sometimes the most challenging situations create opportunities that never would have existed otherwise, and Madison was about to learn that her attempts to sabotage others often backfire in ways she never anticipated. Within 48 hours of our family meeting, word about Madison's criminal activities began spreading through our professional and social networks with the kind of velocity that only comes from truly shocking revelations. The forensics evidence and documented proof of systematic corporate espionage had transformed the narrative, completely shifting from Madison's original story about family dysfunction to a sobering case study in criminal behavior and its consequences. The first indication that the story was gaining broader attention came when Jennifer Walsh, a reporter from the Business Chronicle who specialized in cybersecurity issues, contacted me for an interview about small business data protection. Jennifer had heard about our situation through her network of sources in the legal and cybersecurity communities and was interested in how entrepreneurial companies could protect themselves from insider threats and family-related security breaches. Ms. Brooks, what happened to your company represents a growing concern for small businesses that don't have the security infrastructure of larger corporations, Jennifer explained during our phone conversation. Many entrepreneurs are vulnerable to exactly this type of systematic data theft, especially when the perpetrator has personal access and family connections that make detection difficult. Jennifer's article, published 3 days later, focused on cybersecurity best practices and crisis management strategies, rather than sensationalizing the family drama aspects of our situation. The piece presented Nextech Solutions as a model for how small businesses could respond professionally to data breaches and maintain client trust through transparent communication and comprehensive security improvements. The article's publication triggered additional media attention from trade publications and business journals that covered intellectual property protection and small business security issues. My story became a case study in several industry publications, highlighting both the vulnerabilities that entrepreneurs face and the importance of having robust response protocols when security incidents occur. Meanwhile, Madison's original Facebook post had taken on an entirely different meaning as people began understanding the context behind our family conflict. Comments that had originally supported Madison's narrative about cutting out toxic family members were being deleted or edited as the truth about her criminal activities became public knowledge. Family members who had initially rallied around Madison began reaching out to me with apologies and expressions of support. Our cousin Jennifer, who had written one of the most supportive comments on Madison's original post, called to apologize for jumping to conclusions without understanding the full situation. "Dana, I feel terrible about commenting on Madison's post without knowing what was really happening," Jennifer said during a heartfelt phone conversation. "I had no idea that she had been stealing from your business or engaging in criminal activities. I just saw her post and assumed there was some kind of family disagreement that had gotten out of hand." Similar apologies came from other family members and longtime friends who had been influenced by Madison's initial narrative. Aunt Caroline sent a handwritten letter acknowledging that she had always sensed something manipulative about Madison's behavior, but had chosen to ignore her instincts to avoid family conflict. "I should have trusted my gut feeling that Madison was not being completely honest about family situations," Aunt Caroline wrote. There were too many times when her version of events didn't quite match what I observed firsthand, but I convinced myself that it was just different perspectives rather than deliberate deception. The most significant validation came from Madison's former colleagues at Pinnacle Design Agency, where she had worked as a graphic designer for 18 months before starting her job search. 3 former co-workers reached out independently to share their own experiences with Madison's unethical behavior in professional settings. Sarah Martinez, who had been Madison's supervisor at Pinnacle Design, called me directly after reading about the situation in a local business journal. "Dana, I'm not surprised by what Madison did to your company. We had several incidents here where she took credit for other designers' work and presented client concepts that she had clearly copied from other sources." Sarah explained that Madison had been terminated from Pinnacle Design after the company discovered that she had been using proprietary client information to freelance for competing businesses. The pattern was remarkably similar to what had happened with my company, suggesting that Madison's criminal behavior was not an isolated incident driven by family jealousy, but rather a consistent pattern of professional misconduct. "We didn't pursue legal action because the dollar amounts were relatively small and we wanted to avoid the publicity," Sarah continued. "But Madison's behavior here was definitely unethical and potentially criminal. She had no respect for intellectual property rights or professional boundaries." 2 other former colleagues from Pinnacle Design shared similar stories about Madison's tendency to steal ideas, misrepresent her qualifications, and engage in deceptive practices that violated professional ethics and potentially constituted legal violations. The emerging pattern painted a picture of someone who'd been engaging in systematic dishonesty and criminal behavior for years, using charm and manipulation to avoid consequences. The most shocking revelation came from Amanda Torres Madison's college roommate from 15 years earlier. Amanda contacted me after hearing about the situation through mutual friends who had seen the Business Journal articles about data protection and small business security. "Dana, I've been debating whether to reach out, but I think you should know that Madison's dishonest behavior goes back to college," Amanda explained during our conversation. "During our senior year, Madison stole another student's thesis research and submitted it as her own final project for graduation." Amanda had kept detailed records of the incident because she had been friends with the student whose work was stolen. Lisa Chen had spent 2 years researching sustainable design practices for her senior thesis in environmental studies, conducting original interviews with industry professionals, and developing innovative frameworks for reducing waste in graphic design processes. Madison had somehow gained access to Lisa's research files and had submitted virtually identical work for her own senior project in the art department. The theft was sophisticated enough to avoid detection by professors who were not familiar with Lisa's work, but obvious enough that Amanda and other students recognized the stolen content immediately. Lisa's thesis advisor had changed departments between her research phase and final submission, so the new advisor didn't realize that Madison's project was stolen, Amanda explained. Lisa ended up failing her senior project because her work was flagged as potentially plagiarized even though she was actually the original author. The false plagiarism accusation had prevented Lisa from graduating with her class and had destroyed her academic reputation. She'd been forced to withdraw from school and never completed her degree, while Madison graduated with honors and received recognition for her supposedly innovative approach to sustainable design practices. Lisa's entire academic career was destroyed by Madison's theft, and Madison never faced any consequences. Amanda continued, "I've always felt guilty about not speaking up more forcefully at the time, but I was young and scared about getting involved in academic disputes." Amanda still had copies of Lisa's original research notes and email correspondence from the time period, providing documentary evidence that Madison's pattern of intellectual property theft extended back over 15 years. This historical pattern would be extremely valuable for federal prosecutors building a case about Madison's predisposition toward criminal behavior and her systematic approach to stealing other people's work. The revelation about Madison's college theft also explained some aspects of her recent behavior that had seemed puzzling. Her sophisticated understanding of how to access computer files and steal digital information without immediate detection suggested experience and practice with these types of activities. The systematic nature of her data theft from my company was not the work of an amateur making impulsive decisions, but rather the refined techniques of someone who had been stealing intellectual property for years. As word continued to spread about Madison's criminal activities, the original Facebook post that had started this entire situation became a source of embarrassment rather than support for her narrative. People who had initially believed her claims about family toxicity and personality conflicts were now viewing the post as evidence of her manipulative personality and her tendency to deflect blame onto others when facing consequences for her own actions. The public revelation of Madison's systematic criminal behavior had completely reversed the social dynamics that she had tried to create through her Facebook attack on my character. Instead of being seen as a victim of family dysfunction, Madison was now recognized as someone who had engaged in serious crimes against a family member who had been quietly supporting the family financially while building a legitimate business. As the truth about Madison's criminal activities became more widely known and her social support network crumbled, she launched an increasingly desperate campaign to discredit me and salvage her deteriorating reputation. The systematic nature of her counterattack revealed the same calculating mindset that had enabled her years of intellectual property theft and deceptive behavior. Madison's first strategy involved creating multiple fake social media accounts with variations of names like Concerned Business Owner and Ethics in Technology that she used to post negative reviews and false accusations about Nextech solutions on business review websites and professional networking platforms. The fake accounts were sophisticated enough to include profile photos, fabricated work histories, and detailed personal information that made them appear legitimate to casual observers. The false reviews claimed that Nextech Solutions had serious data security problems, that we had leaked confidential client information to competitors, and that our business practices violated industry standards for professional conduct. Madison had crafted each review to sound like it came from a legitimate former client or business partner, including specific technical details that demonstrated her extensive knowledge of our operations and client relationships. I hired Nextech Solutions for a critical software integration project and discovered that they were sharing my confidential business information with other companies in my industry. Read one particularly damaging fake review. Their security protocols are completely inadequate, and I would never trust them with sensitive data again. Other businesses should be very careful about working with this company. Madison had also filed false complaints with the Better Business Bureau, the local Chamber of Commerce, and several industry trade organizations, alleging that Nextech Solutions had violated professional ethics standards and engaged in deceptive business practices. Each complaint was carefully crafted to reference real industry regulations and professional standards, demonstrating Madison's thorough research into how to cause maximum damage to our business reputation. The false reports triggered legitimate investigations by several business organizations that were obligated to review any complaints about member companies. While the investigations ultimately confirmed that the allegations were baseless, the process required significant time and resources to address and created temporary uncertainty about our standing with important professional associations. Madison's most dangerous tactic involved directly contacting our clients with fabricated stories about data security breaches and unauthorized disclosure of their confidential information. She created official-looking email accounts with names like Cybersecurity, NextechAlerts.com, and Data Protection nextechsecurity.net that appeared to be legitimate communication from our company's security department. The fake security alerts claimed that Nextech Solutions had experienced a major data breach that had compromised client information and urged recipients to immediately terminate their contracts and remove all confidential data from our systems. The emails included sophisticated technical language and references to real cybersecurity protocols, making them appear authentic enough to cause serious concern among recipients. 3 clients contacted me directly after receiving Madison's fake security alerts, expressing confusion about why they were hearing about data breaches through unofficial channels rather than through our normal client communication protocols. The fake communications could have caused significant damage to our business relationships if clients had not been familiar enough with our actual communication procedures to recognize the deception. Dana, we received some concerning emails about data security issues with your company, explained Patricia Morrison from Advanced Manufacturing Solutions. The messages looked official, but something felt off about the communication style and the fact that we didn't receive any notification through our normal contact channels. Madison had also attempted to sabotage our client relationships by impersonating me in phone calls to several companies using information she had stolen during her unauthorized access to our business files. She contacted clients claiming to be calling from Nextech Solutions to discuss changes to contract terms, service interruptions, or billing adjustments that would have created confusion and mistrust if the clients had not verified the calls through our official channels. The impersonation attempts were sophisticated enough that Madison was able to reference specific project details, contract terms, and client personnel information that made her calls initially credible. Only her unfamiliarity with current project status and recent client communications revealed that the calls were not coming from our actual business operations. As Madison's fake attacks on our business intensified, her personal life began deteriorating under the stress of maintaining so many deceptive schemes while facing potential federal prosecution. Her fiancé, David, started questioning the wedding plans after learning about the criminal charges and becoming aware of the systematic nature of Madison's dishonest behavior. David contacted me directly to ask about the situation, expressing concern about marrying someone who was facing potential federal prison time and had demonstrated a pattern of lying and criminal activity that extended back to college. His conversation revealed that Madison had been lying to him about many aspects of her past and present circumstances. Dana, Madison told me that your family conflict was about personality differences and that you were trying to sabotage her career because you were jealous of her success. David explained during our phone call. She never mentioned anything about stealing business information or engaging in criminal activities. I'm starting to realize that she's been lying to me about a lot of things. David's growing awareness of Madison's deceptive behavior created additional stress in her personal relationships, leading to increasingly erratic and desperate actions as she tried to maintain control over multiple false narratives simultaneously. She was spending enormous amounts of time and energy managing fake social media accounts, filing false reports, and coordinating attacks on our business, while also trying to convince David that she was the victim of a family conspiracy. The most revealing aspect of Madison's counterattack campaign was how it perfectly mirrored the criminal behavior that had created her legal problems in the first place. She was using deception, identity theft, and systematic fraud to attack others rather than accepting responsibility for her actions or attempting to make amends for the harm she had caused. Madison's desperate counterattack ultimately strengthened the case against her by providing federal prosecutors with additional evidence of her criminal mindset and her willingness to continue engaging in illegal activities even while facing prosecution for previous crimes. Her fake business reviews, fraudulent identity impersonation, and attempts to sabotage legitimate business operations constituted new federal crimes that could be added to the existing charges. The counterattack also demonstrated to prosecutors that Madison posed an ongoing threat to victims and to the business community, supporting arguments for more severe sentencing and comprehensive restitution requirements. Rather than helping her situation, Madison's desperate attempts to discredit others had provided law enforcement with compelling evidence that she represented a systematic threat that required serious criminal justice intervention. Under mounting pressure, from overwhelming evidence and facing the reality of federal prosecution for multiple serious crimes, Madison's attorney arranged a plea negotiation meeting with federal prosecutors. The meeting took place 6 weeks after the initial criminal complaint was filed, by which time additional evidence had emerged about Madison's counterattack campaign and her historical pattern of intellectual property theft dating back to college. Assistant United States Attorney Michael Rodriguez had handled dozens of computer fraud and intellectual property theft cases during his 8 years with the federal prosecutor's office. His reputation for thorough case preparation and aggressive prosecution of white-collar crimes made him exactly the kind of prosecutor that defense attorneys hoped to avoid when their clients were facing serious federal charges. Ms. Brooks's criminal activity represents a textbook case of systematic intellectual property theft with clear intent to profit from stolen trade secrets. Prosecutor Rodriguez explained to Madison's attorney during the initial plea discussion. The evidence includes digital forensics documentation, multiple victim statements, and ongoing criminal activity that continued even after the initial charges were filed. Madison's attorney, Richard Sterling, had reviewed the evidence and understood that his client was facing potential prison sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years if the case proceeded to trial. The digital forensics evidence was essentially uncontestable, and Madison's own admissions during the family confrontation had been witnessed by multiple family members who would testify against her if necessary. Mr. Sterling, your client, has an opportunity to accept responsibility for her actions and cooperate with our investigation. Prosecutor Rodriguez continued, but that window is closing rapidly as we continue to discover additional victims and evidence of related criminal activities. The plea negotiation process required Madison to provide complete and truthful disclosure of all criminal activities, including incidents that had not yet been discovered by investigators. This proffer session would determine whether she was genuinely accepting responsibility or continuing to minimize and deceive about the scope of her criminal behavior. Madison's confession took place in a sterile conference room at the federal courthouse, with her attorney present, along with federal prosecutors, FBI investigators, and a court reporter who documented every word for the official record. The formal setting seemed to finally impress upon Madison the seriousness of her situation and the futility of continued deception. "I want to make a complete statement about everything I did," Madison began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand that lying or omitting information will void any plea agreement and result in additional charges being filed against me." Over the course of 4 hours, Madison provided detailed admissions about her systematic theft of proprietary information, from Nextech Solutions, her creation of the fake consulting website to compete with my business using stolen trade secrets, and her ongoing campaign of false business reviews and client impersonation designed to damage our reputation and operations. The confession also revealed the full scope of Madison's historical pattern of intellectual property theft, including the college incident where she had stolen Lisa Chen's senior thesis and caused an innocent student to be falsely accused of plagiarism. Madison admitted that she had maintained copies of Lisa's research for years and had continued to use elements of the stolen work in her professional portfolio and job applications. "I was jealous of Dana's success and felt like she had always been the favorite daughter who got better opportunities," Madison explained during her confession. "I convinced myself that taking her business information was justified because she had advantages that I never received, and I thought I deserved to benefit from ideas that I felt she didn't appreciate." The most shocking revelation in Madison's confession was her admission that she had been systematically sabotaging my personal relationships for over 15 years by spreading lies and false information to romantic partners, friends, and professional contacts. She had contacted my former boyfriends with fabricated stories about my character, my finances, and my personal relationships, causing several promising relationships to end under mysterious circumstances. I told Michael Patterson that Dana was secretly engaged to someone else because I was angry that their relationship was going so well. Madison confessed referring to a boyfriend from 5 years earlier whose sudden distance and eventual breakup had never made sense to me. I contacted him through a fake social media account and provided detailed information that made the lie seem credible. Madison's systematic relationship sabotage had extended to professional networking, as well as she had contacted former colleagues and business associates with subtle suggestions that I was difficult to work with or had personality problems that made collaboration challenging. Her manipulation had been sophisticated enough to plant doubts without making obvious accusations that could be traced back to her. The confession also revealed that Madison had stolen and sold several family heirlooms over the years, including our grandmother's wedding ring, our grandfather's vintage watch collection, and antique jewelry that our parents believed had been lost during various family moves. She had used online auction sites to sell the stolen items and had covered her tracks by suggesting that the missing items had probably been misplaced during relocations or storage transitions. I took grandmother's wedding ring during Mom's hip surgery recovery period when everyone was focused on medical care, Madison admitted. I sold it to a jewelry store for $800 and used the money for my wedding dress deposit. I convinced everyone that it had probably been misplaced during the hospital visits when people were taking care of Mom. Federal prosecutors were particularly interested in Madison's admission that she had been monitoring my business activities and personal relationships through unauthorized access to social media accounts, email systems, and cloud storage that went far beyond the single laptop incident that had initially triggered the investigation. She had been engaging in systematic digital stalking and privacy violations for months before the Morrison Industries job opportunity presented itself. I had been reading Dana's emails and business documents for almost a year before I applied for the Morrison Industries position. Madison confessed. I was gathering information that I could use to start my own competing business or to find ways to interfere with her client relationships and damage her reputation. The comprehensive nature of Madison's confession provided federal prosecutors with evidence for additional charges related to identity theft privacy violations and systematic fraud that had not been included in the original criminal complaint. The confession also established clear criminal intent and premeditation that would support enhanced sentencing under federal guidelines for organized criminal activity. As the confession session concluded, Madison finally acknowledged the devastating impact that her criminal activities had caused to multiple victims, including not only my business and our family relationships, but also innocent people like Lisa Chen, whose academic career had been destroyed by Madison's theft 15 years earlier. I understand that my actions have caused serious harm to people who trusted me, and that I have violated both family relationships and professional ethics in ways that cannot be easily forgiven or forgotten. Madison concluded, I accept full responsibility for everything I have done and am willing to make whatever restitution is possible to repair the damage I have caused. The confession provided the complete picture of Madison's criminal behavior and established the foundation for a plea agreement that would require extensive restitution community service and psychological counseling designed to address the underlying issues that had driven her years of deceptive and criminal behavior. Madison's comprehensive confession and subsequent guilty plea sent shockwaves through our extended family's social circles and professional networks, creating ripple effects that extended far beyond the immediate legal consequences. The revelation of her 15-year pattern of manipulation, theft, and systematic deception forced everyone who had known her to reevaluate their memories and question their understanding of past events. Our parents entered family therapy immediately after the confession, working with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a licensed counselor who specialized in family systems affected by criminal behavior and long-term deception. The therapy sessions revealed how Madison's manipulative behavior had shaped family dynamics for decades, with everyone unconsciously adapting their behavior to accommodate her lies and emotional volatility. We enabled Madison's behavior by consistently making excuses for her and expecting Dana to be the responsible one who fixed problems and maintained family peace. Our father admitted during one of their therapy sessions that I attended. We taught Madison that there were no real consequences for her actions and that she could always count on family members to protect her from accountability. Our mother struggled with guilt about the years of favoritism and the way they had consistently pressured me to accommodate Madison's unreasonable demands and manipulative behavior. I always sensed that something was wrong with Madison's version of events, but I chose to believe her because it was easier than confronting the truth, she confessed tearfully. The family therapy process also revealed how Madison's lies and manipulation had affected other family members in ways that had never been openly discussed. Aunt Caroline admitted that she had always felt uncomfortable around Madison, but had convinced herself that her concerns were just personality differences, rather than instinctive recognition of deceptive behavior. There were so many times when Madison's stories didn't add up or when her emotional reactions seemed calculated rather than genuine, Aunt Caroline explained. But I told myself I was being too judgmental and that family loyalty meant giving her the benefit of the doubt. The ripple effects extended beyond our immediate family as Madison's former romantic partners began reaching out to share their own experiences with her deceptive and manipulative behavior. 3 of her former boyfriends contacted me independently after hearing about the confession, expressing relief that they finally understood why their relationships with Madison had felt unstable and emotionally exhausting. Jason Rivera, who had dated Madison for 2 years before meeting his current wife, called to apologize for cutting off contact with me after Madison had told him that I had made inappropriate advances toward him during a family gathering. I always thought it was strange that you would do something like that, especially since you had always been friendly and appropriate in all our interactions, Jason explained. But Madison was so convincing when she described the situation that I felt I had to believe her. The false accusation had prevented me from maintaining friendship with Jason and his wife, who had been important people in my social circle. Madison's lie had not only damaged my relationship with Jason, but it also cost me connections with several mutual friends who had chosen sides based on Madison's fabricated version of events. Similar stories emerged from other former romantic partners and friends who had been manipulated by Madison's lies and strategic emotional manipulation. The pattern was remarkably consistent. Madison would create false emergencies or dramatic conflicts that forced people to choose between supporting her or maintaining relationships with others she perceived as threats to her control. The most significant personal revelation came when Michael Patterson, my former boyfriend from 5 years earlier, contacted me after learning about Madison's confession through mutual friends. Our relationship had ended abruptly when Michael became convinced that I was secretly engaged to someone else and had been using him as a temporary distraction while planning my life with another person. "Dana, I owe you a huge apology," Michael said during our phone conversation. Madison contacted me through a fake social media account and provided very specific information about your supposed engagement, including details about wedding planning and financial arrangements that seemed too detailed to be fabricated. Michael explained that Madison had created an elaborate deception involving fake social media profiles, doctored photographs, and fabricated conversations that painted me as someone who was living a double life while deceiving him about my true intentions. The false evidence had been sophisticated enough to convince Michael that ending our relationship was necessary to protect himself from further emotional manipulation. "I should have talked to you directly, instead of believing anonymous messages from someone claiming to be looking out for my best interests," Michael continued. "Our relationship was going so well that I couldn't understand why you would be planning to marry someone else, but the evidence seemed overwhelming at the time. The revelation about Madison's systematic sabotage of my romantic relationships explained several mysterious breakups and sudden changes in behavior from former partners that had never made sense to me. Her manipulation had been sophisticated enough to destroy promising relationships without leaving obvious traces that could be connected back to her interference. Michael's apology opened the door to renewed friendship and eventually to rebuilding the romantic relationship that Madison had destroyed through her deception. I've always wondered what would have happened if our relationship had continued naturally instead of being sabotaged by outside interference, Michael admitted. Would you be interested in exploring whether we can rebuild what we had? The professional ripple effects were equally significant as colleagues and business associates who'd been influenced by Madison's subtle character assassination campaigns reached out to apologize and express support. Several former co-workers from my previous corporate position admitted that Madison had contacted them over the years with concerns about my mental health, financial problems, or professional competence that had influenced their perceptions without them realizing it. Madison reached out to me about 6 months after you left Henderson Marketing Group expressing concern that you were struggling with some personal issues that were affecting your judgment and professional relationships, explained Sarah Mitchell, my former supervisor. She suggested that I might want to be careful about providing references or recommendations because you were going through a difficult period. The subtle character assassination had been effective enough to plant doubts without making direct accusations that could be challenged or investigated. Madison's strategy had been to position herself as a concerned family member who was worried about my well-being rather than someone actively trying to damage my professional reputation. The discovery of Madison's systematic manipulation prompted several former colleagues to reach out with belated job opportunities and professional recommendations that they had previously withheld based on Madison's false concerns about my stability and competence. The renewed professional relationships led to additional business opportunities for Nextech Solutions and helped expand our network of industry contacts. As word spread about the full scope of Madison's confession and the systematic nature of her deceptive behavior over 15 years, people throughout our social and professional networks began reevaluating their own interactions with her and recognizing signs of manipulation that they had previously dismissed or misunderstood. The collective recognition of Madison's pattern of behavior provided validation for everyone who had been victimized by her lies and manipulation, while also serving as a cautionary example of how systematic deception could operate within families and social circles without being detected for years. In the 18 months following Madison's guilty plea and sentencing, our family embarked on a comprehensive rebuilding process that addressed not only the immediate damage from her criminal activities, but also the underlying patterns of dysfunction that had enabled her behavior for decades. The process was challenging and sometimes painful, but it ultimately created stronger, healthier relationships built on honesty and accountability, rather than enabling and manipulation. Madison was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 2 years of supervised probation, during which she would be required to pay full restitution, totaling $478,000 to cover damages to Nextech Solutions, our clients and the family members who had been harmed by her theft and deception. The sentence also included 500 hours of community service and mandatory participation in counseling programs designed to address the psychological factors that had contributed to her criminal behavior. The federal judge who imposed the sentence emphasized that Madison's crimes represented a serious violation of trust that had caused substantial harm to multiple victims over many years. This defendant engaged in systematic criminal behavior that threatened the financial security of family members and legitimate businesses. Judge Patricia Anderson stated during the sentencing hearing, "The court must impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of these crimes and deters similar behavior by others." During the restitution hearing, Madison's confession had led to the recovery of several family heirlooms that she had stolen and sold over the years. Working with federal investigators and restitution specialists, we were able to locate and recover our grandmother's wedding ring, our grandfather's vintage watch collection, and several pieces of antique jewelry that our parents had believed were lost forever. The recovery of our grandmother's wedding ring was particularly meaningful to our family as it represented a tangible connection to our family history that we thought had been permanently lost. Our mother cried when the FBI returned the ring, explaining that it had been her mother's most precious possession and had been intended to pass down through generations of daughters in our family. "I can't believe Madison sold something that meant so much to our family history," our mother said, as she held the ring for the first time in 3 years. "But I'm grateful that we're getting it back and that the truth is finally coming out about what really happened to these precious family items." The restitution process also revealed additional financial crimes that Madison had committed against our parents, including unauthorized use of their credit cards for personal expenses and manipulation of their insurance claims to redirect payments to accounts she controlled. The total financial impact of Madison's crimes against family members exceeded $60,000 when all the theft and fraud was fully documented. Our parents' participation in family therapy had been transformative in helping them understand how their enabling behavior had contributed to Madison's escalating criminal activity. Dr. Mitchell helped them recognize that their pattern of making excuses for Madison and pressuring me to accommodate her unreasonable demands had actually prevented Madison from facing consequences that might have led to behavior change years earlier. "We thought we were being loving and supportive by always giving Madison the benefit of the doubt," our father explained during one of our joint therapy sessions. "But we realize now that we were actually enabling her to hurt other people and preventing her from learning that her actions had serious consequences." The family therapy process also addressed the impact of Madison's crimes on my own emotional well-being and helped me understand that I had spent years trying to maintain family harmony by absorbing the cost of Madison's destructive behavior. Dr. Mitchell helped me recognize that setting boundaries and protecting myself from manipulation was not selfish, but was actually necessary for everyone's healthy development. Nextech Solutions had grown significantly during the rebuilding period, expanding to employ over 100 people and becoming recognized as an industry leader in cybersecurity and ethical business practices. The crisis management protocols we had developed in response to Madison's data breach had become a model that other companies adopted, and our reputation for transparency and professional integrity had attracted new clients and business opportunities. Jessica and I established the Brooks Family Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provided support and resources for families dealing with similar situations involving criminal behavior and long-term manipulation by family members. The foundation offered counseling services, legal assistance, and educational programs designed to help people recognize and respond to systematic deception within family systems. "What happened to our family could happen to anyone," I explained during the Foundation's launch event. "Manipulation and criminal behavior often develop gradually over years, making it difficult for family members to recognize the signs until significant damage has occurred. Our goal is to help other families identify these patterns earlier and respond in ways that protect victims while encouraging accountability and genuine behavior change." The Foundation's programs were informed by our own experience with family therapy and the lessons we had learned about healthy boundaries, accountability, and the difference between enabling and genuine support. We worked with mental health professionals, legal experts, and other families who had dealt with similar situations to develop comprehensive resources that addressed both immediate crisis response and long-term healing. Michael and I had successfully rebuilt our romantic relationship, approaching it with greater maturity and understanding than we had possessed 5 years earlier. Our renewed relationship was strengthened by our shared experience of overcoming Madison's manipulation and our commitment to honest communication about challenges and concerns. Going through this experience together, even though we were separated for several years, has taught us both a lot about the importance of direct communication and not allowing outside influences to interfere with our relationship, Michael reflected. "We're both more confident now about addressing problems honestly, rather than letting misunderstandings or outside manipulation create distance between us." Our relationship had progressed to the point where we were discussing marriage and planning a future together that would include continuing to build Next Tech Solutions and expanding the Brooks Family Foundation's programs to help other families dealing with similar challenges. The most surprising development in the rebuilding process came when Madison began making genuine progress in the federal prison counseling programs designed to address her criminal behavior and underlying psychological issues. For the first time in her life, Madison was participating in intensive therapy that held her accountable for her actions while providing tools for developing healthier relationship patterns. Madison's progress reports from the prison counseling staff indicated that she was beginning to understand the impact of her criminal behavior on victims and was developing genuine empathy rather than the superficial manipulation that had characterized her previous attempts at appearing remorseful. The structured environment and consistent accountability were providing Madison with the external framework she needed to develop internal controls over her deceptive and criminal impulses. 6 months into her sentence, Madison was permitted to participate in a victim impact program where she could hear directly from people who had been harmed by crimes similar to hers. The program helped her understand that her actions had caused real suffering to real people, rather than just abstract legal violations that existed only on paper. For the first time in our lives, Madison's communications with our family were characterized by genuine accountability and honest acknowledgement of the harm she had caused, rather than manipulation and deflection of responsibility. Her letters from prison demonstrated real progress in developing empathy and understanding the impact of her actions on others. I am finally beginning to understand that my actions caused real harm to people I claimed to love, Madison wrote in one of her letters to our parents. I spent so many years convincing myself that other people were the problem, or that my behavior was justified by things that had been done to me. I am learning that those were excuses that prevented me from taking responsibility for my choices and changing my behavior. The rebuilding process had been challenging and emotionally exhausting, but it had ultimately created stronger family relationships based on honesty, accountability, and healthy boundaries rather than enabling and manipulation. For the first time in decades, our family was functioning as a supportive system that encouraged personal growth and responsibility, rather than protecting destructive behavior from natural consequences. 2.5 years after Madison's Facebook post had inadvertently set these events in motion, I stood in the expanded headquarters of Next Tech Solutions, looking out at a thriving company that employed 137 people and had become a respected leader in cybersecurity and ethical business practices. The view from our new offices on the 42nd floor encompassed not just the city's skyline, but also a perspective on how crisis and challenges could become catalysts for growth and positive change when handled with integrity and determination. The company's success had exceeded our most ambitious projections from those early days when Madison's criminal activities had threatened to destroy everything we had built. Our revenue had grown to over $15 million annually, and we maintained contracts with 63 major clients who specifically chose Next Tech Solutions because of our reputation for transparency, security, and ethical business practices. The crisis management protocols we had developed in response to Madison's data breach had evolved into a comprehensive consulting service that helped other companies prepare for and respond to cybersecurity incidents. Our Brooks protocol had been adopted by hundreds of businesses and had become an industry standard for maintaining client trust during security emergencies. More importantly, the personal relationships that had been damaged or destroyed by Madison's systematic manipulation had been rebuilt on foundations of honest communication and mutual respect. Michael and I had married 18 months earlier in a ceremony that celebrated not just our commitment to each other, but also our family's journey toward healing and accountability. Our wedding had been a powerful symbol of renewal and hope, with our parents walking us both down the aisle to represent their commitment to supporting healthy relationships rather than enabling destructive behavior. The The ceremony was attended by clients, colleagues, and friends who had supported us through the challenging process of rebuilding our lives and businesses after Madison's crimes. The Brooks Family Foundation had grown into a significant resource for families dealing with manipulation, criminal behavior, and long-term deception within family systems. Our programs had helped over 300 families recognize and respond to patterns of systematic manipulation, providing them with tools and resources that we wished had been available during our own crisis. What we learned through our experience is that love and loyalty don't require enabling destructive behavior. I explained during a foundation fundraising event. True family support sometimes means setting boundaries and allowing natural consequences to occur, even when that process is painful and difficult for everyone involved. The Foundation's educational programs had been particularly effective in helping people understand the difference between supporting someone through genuine difficulties versus protecting them from accountability for harmful choices. Our workshops provided practical tools for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and maintaining family relationships while refusing to enable criminal or destructive behavior. Madison's progress in federal prison had been genuine and sustained, representing the first time in her adult life that she had been held consistently accountable for her actions without the option of manipulating her way out of consequences. The structured environment and intensive counseling had provided her with tools for developing empathy, accepting responsibility, and building honest relationships with others. For the first time in my life, I understand that real relationships are built on honesty and mutual respect rather than manipulation and control, Madison wrote in a letter from prison. I am learning to value other people's well-being and success rather than seeing them as threats to my own goals or obstacles to getting what I want. Madison's transformation had been supported by participation in victim impact programs, educational courses, and work assignments that required her to consider the effects of her actions on other people. She was scheduled for release in 6 months with a comprehensive re-entry plan that included continued counseling, community service, and gradual reintegration into family relationships through structured and supervised interactions. I know that rebuilding trust with our family will take years of consistent, honest behavior, Madison continued in her correspondence. I don't expect forgiveness or immediate acceptance, but I am committed to proving through my actions that I have genuinely changed and that I understand the serious harm I caused to people who deserved better from me. Our parents had completed their own intensive family therapy and had developed much healthier relationship patterns that emphasized accountability and honest communication rather than enabling and conflict avoidance. They had learned to express their expectations, clearly maintain consistent boundaries, and support family members in ways that encourage personal growth rather than protecting them from natural consequences. We realize now that our old patterns of handling family conflicts actually prevented everyone from developing healthy relationship skills. Our father reflected during a recent family dinner. We thought we were keeping peace by avoiding confrontation and making excuses for problematic behavior, but we were actually preventing the kind of honest communication that builds strong families. The financial restitution process had been completed successfully with Nextech Solutions, receiving full compensation for the damages caused by Madison's theft of intellectual property and client information. The restitution payments had been structured to come from Madison's prison work assignments and would continue through her supervised probation period until the full amount was satisfied. More significantly, the recovery of stolen family heirlooms had restored precious connections to our family history that we had thought were permanently lost. Our grandmother's wedding ring had been passed down to me during our wedding ceremony, continuing a family tradition that Madison's theft had temporarily disrupted, but ultimately could not destroy. The business relationships that had been threatened by Madison's criminal activities had not only survived, but had strengthened into partnerships based on mutual respect for ethical business practices and transparent communication during challenging circumstances. Several clients had specifically cited our professional handling of the crisis as a factor in their decisions to expand their contracts and recommend our services to other companies. What impressed us most about Nextech Solutions wasn't that you avoided having problems, but how you handled serious challenges with integrity and transparency, explained Robert Morrison during our recent contract renewal meeting. That kind of ethical leadership is exactly what we want in our business partners. The media attention that had initially surrounded our story had evolved into opportunities to speak at conferences and industry events about cybersecurity family business challenges and the importance of ethical leadership in technology companies. My presentations focused on practical lessons that other entrepreneurs could apply to protect their businesses and maintain integrity during difficult circumstances. As I reflected on the journey from that devastating Facebook post to our current position of strength and stability, I recognized that Madison's attempt to destroy my reputation had inadvertently created opportunities for growth and positive change that never would have existed otherwise. Her criminal behavior had forced us to develop security protocols, communication strategies, and family relationship skills that had strengthened every aspect of our lives and businesses. The most important lesson from our experience was that protecting yourself from toxic or manipulative behavior isn't selfish or vindictive. It's essential for everyone's well-being and growth. Enabling destructive behavior might feel like kindness in the moment, but it actually prevents people from learning and changing while causing ongoing harm to innocent victims. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to refuse to protect them from the natural consequences of their choices. I had learned to explain to families dealing with similar situations, real change requires accountability, and accountability requires that actions have meaningful consequences. Our story had become a testament to the power of truth, integrity, and consistent accountability to transform even the most difficult family situations into opportunities for healing and growth. While Madison's crimes had initially threatened to destroy our family and business relationships, our commitment to honesty and ethical behavior had ultimately created stronger foundations for future success and happiness. The Facebook post that was supposed to end our family relationship had instead led to genuine healing criminal justice and the kind of authentic family bonds that can only exist when everyone is committed to honesty, accountability, and mutual respect. Sometimes the most challenging experiences in life become the catalysts for the most meaningful and lasting positive changes. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone's attempt to damage your reputation or relationships ultimately revealed their own problems and led to positive changes in your life? How do you balance family loyalty with protecting yourself from manipulative or harmful behavior? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find it who might be dealing with similar family challenges. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about overcoming family conflicts and building healthy relationships based on honesty and accountability. And please share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing about how truth and integrity can triumph over manipulation and deception. Thank you for joining me on this journey of healing and growth. Remember that you have the right to protect yourself from toxic behavior, even when it comes from family members, and that sometimes the most difficult situations become opportunities for the most meaningful, positive changes. Take care, and I'll see you in the next story.